Hello everyone, John AG here. Welcome back to my channel Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, real market updates that everyone cannot tell you. So please subscribe to this channel, and I love you, all of my subscribers, for your support. And please watch this video till the very end because YouTube will not push my videos to more people. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, pouring your coffee, opening your banking app, and realizing that the numbers on your screen are entirely disconnected from the reality of the world outside your window. Imagine walking into a grocery store and finding that the currency in your pocket, the currency you traded hours, days, and years of your life to accumulate, is suddenly treated with suspicion, or worse, outright apathy. This is not a dystopian fantasy drafted in a Hollywood writer's room. This is the mathematical, historical, and deeply human reality of what happens when a global reserve currency reaches the end of its lifespan. You are living through the unraveling of the United States dollar, and the decisions you make in the next few months will permanently dictate the financial trajectory of your family's bloodline for the next century. To understand the sheer magnitude of the geopolitical and economic earthquake happening right now in 2026, we have to strip away the complex jargon of Wall Street. We have to stop listening to the sterile, manicured talking points of central bankers who look into the camera and tell you that inflation is under control, that the system is resilient, and that your purchasing power is secure. They are paid to manage your psychology, not to protect your wealth. Finance, at its absolute core, is deeply human. Money is supposed to be a sacred contract. It is a storage mechanism for your physical energy. When you go to work, you sacrifice your irreplaceable time, your intellect, and your physical labor, and in return, society hands you a token. That token is supposed to hold your energy intact so that you can spend it next week, next month, or in your twilight years to feed your family, heat your home, and live with dignity. But what happens when the institution issuing those tokens decides to print trillions of them out of thin air? They dilute your life force. They are retroactively stealing the time you already worked. This is the hidden, insidious violence of inflation and fiat currency debasement. It is a slow, silent predator that stalks the middle and working classes, transferring their wealth upward to the political and financial elites who hold hard assets. And for the last 80 years, the entire world has been subjected to this theft on a global scale because the United States dollar has held the undisputed monopoly as the world's reserve currency. We are not the first empire to walk this arrogant path, and we will not be the last. If you study history with open eyes, you will see a rhythm that beats like a drum through the centuries. Global reserve currencies have an average lifespan of roughly 80 to 100 years. The Portuguese real, the Spanish escudo, the Dutch guilder, the French livre, the British pound sterling, every single one of these currencies dominated the globe. Every single one of these empires believed their financial supremacy was ordained by God and would last forever. And every single one of them collapsed under the exact same fatal temptations. They expanded their military footprint beyond their means, they created massive welfare states to pacify their citizens, and when they ran out of actual wealth to pay for it all, they turned to the printing press. They debased their currency, shattered the trust of the global community, and collapsed into the history books. The United States entered its era of absolute dominance at the end of World War II with the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944. The dollar was crowned king, but it was anchored to a discipline. It was backed by physical gold. That discipline died in 1971 when President Richard Nixon temporarily, and I use that word with bitter irony, suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Overnight, the dollar became a fiat currency, backed by absolutely nothing but the coercive power of the state and the trust of the public. But a currency backed by nothing is vulnerable, and the architects of the American empire knew they needed a mechanism to force the world to keep holding their paper. Enter the most brilliant and devastating financial mechanism of the modern era, the petrodollar system. In the 1970s, the United States struck a deal with Saudi Arabia and the OPEC nations. The terms were simple, but profoundly world-altering. The United States would provide military protection, weaponry, and geopolitical cover to the Saudi royal family. In exchange, Saudi Arabia agreed to price and sell all of its oil exclusively in United States dollars. Think about the sheer power of this arrangement. Oil is the master commodity. It is the lifeblood of human civilization. It is the energy required to grow food, manufacture goods, and transport materials across oceans. If every nation on Earth needs oil to survive, and they can only buy that oil using US dollars, then every nation on Earth is forced to hold US dollars in their central bank reserves. If Japan wants oil from the Middle East, they cannot use the yen. They must manufacture cars and electronics, ship them to America, trade them for dollars, and then send those dollars to Saudi Arabia. This created an artificial, guaranteed, perpetual global demand for American fiat currency. This is the exorbitant privilege that allowed the United States government to print trillions of dollars without immediately causing hyperinflation at home. We simply exported our inflation to the rest of the world. The world absorbed our debt because they had to, just to keep their lights on and their engines running. Now, step into the reality of 2026. The petrodollar system is not just fracturing, it is actively being dismantled brick by brick. The weaponization of the US dollar in the early 2020s, when Western powers froze hundreds of billions in sovereign reserves of foreign nations, was a fatal miscalculation. It sent a shockwave of terror through the global south in the BRICS alliance. Russia, China, India, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and dozens of other nations looked at that unprecedented financial warfare and realized a terrifying truth. If the dollars in their reserves could be confiscated with a single keystroke, they were not assets, they were liabilities. The BRICS nations, which now control a dominant share of global GDP, manufacturing capacity, and natural resources, are deliberately decoupling from the dollar matrix. Saudi Arabia is actively trading energy in yuan and other local currencies. When oil is no longer exclusively priced and settled in dollars, the artificial demand that has propped up the American economy for half a century evaporates. This brings us to the most critical question of our lifetime. What happens to the price of oil, gold, and silver when the dollar loses its throne? Let us start with oil. When the dollar dies as the global pricing mechanism, the fundamental intrinsic value of oil does not change. A barrel of crude oil contains the exact same amount of kinetic energy and utility whether the empire falls or stands. What breaks is the measuring stick. In a post-dollar world, oil will be settled through bilateral currency agreements, through new blockchain-based settlement systems developed by the BRICS, or directly exchanged for tangible commodities and gold. If you are earning your living in US dollars, the death of the petrodollar means those trillions of paper notes held by foreign central banks will come flooding back to American shores. When the world no longer needs our paper, they will trade it back to us for whatever real assets they can acquire. This deluge of returning currency will chase the same finite amount of goods, leading to a catastrophic repricing of energy. You will walk up to the gas station and the price on the pump will look like a typographical error. It will not be because oil became rare, it will be because the paper in your wallet has been fundamentally revalued to reflect its true, unbacked worth. The cost of energy will drag the cost of every single item in the grocery store up with it, crushing the purchasing power of the middle class in a vice grip of stagflation. Now look at the apex predator of the financial world, gold. For over 5,000 years across every continent, every language barrier, and every fallen empire, gold has been the ultimate arbiter of wealth. It is the only financial asset on the planet that is not simultaneously someone else's liability. A dollar is a liability of the Federal Reserve. A treasury bond is a liability of the US government. A stock is dependent on a corporation's performance. Real estate requires property rights enforced by a stable government. But a physical ounce of gold in your hand requires no counterparty. It requires no electricity, no internet connection, and no politician's signature to possess value. When the fiat dollar dies, gold reclaims its absolute, undeniable throne at the center of the global financial architecture. The smartest, most well-connected institutions on Earth, the sovereign central banks, already know this. They have spent the last half-decade ruthlessly and quietly hoarding physical gold at record-breaking speeds, emptying Western vaults and moving the physical metal eastward. They are not buying gold because they want to speculate on its price going up. They are buying gold because they are preparing for a new monetary system. When trust between nations evaporates, the only asset they can use to settle international trade imbalances is gold. But you must understand the critical, dangerous illusion of the modern gold market. The price of gold you see on television today is a phantom. It is dictated by the COMEX, by paper futures contracts, by unallocated accounts, and by exchange-traded funds. For every one physical ounce of gold sitting in a heavily guarded vault, there are potentially dozens, if not hundreds, of paper claims on that exact same ounce. It is a game of musical chairs played on a global scale. When the dollar system breaks, the music stops. The world will realize simultaneously that paper gold is just another fiat promise. The paper markets will experience a spectacular failure to deliver. If you own a gold ETF or a paper derivative, you will not get physical metal. You will get cash settled in deeply depreciated, worthless fiat currency. But physical gold, the coin in your safe, the bar in your hand, will go no bid. It will become unobtainium. It will decouple from the paper price, and its value will be determined only by what a desperate holder of fiat currency is willing to surrender to acquire it. Physical gold will not just protect your life savings. It will be the Tier 1 capital that allows you to operate and thrive in whatever new system rises from the ashes. If gold is the wealth of central banks and nations, Silver is the financial sword and shield of the everyday citizen. And the setup for silver in a dying dollar scenario is perhaps the most explosive, coiled spring in the history of global economics. Silver lives a fascinating and deeply conflicted double life. On one hand, it has more historical pedigree as a circulating medium of exchange than gold. For thousands of years, silver was the money of the working class. It was the coin used to buy bread, to pay soldiers, and to conduct daily commerce. On the other hand, silver is arguably the most critical, irreplaceable industrial commodity in the modern technological age. We are hurtling toward a future dominated by artificial intelligence data centers, mass electrification, advanced robotics, military aerospace tech, and renewable energy infrastructure like solar panels and electric vehicles. None of this, absolutely none of it, functions without silver. It is the most electrically conductive, thermally conductive, and highly reflective metal known to mankind. There is no viable substitute. And unlike gold, which is carefully stored in vaults and handed down through generations, industrial silver is consumed. It is put into microchips, medical devices, and solar panels, used up, and eventually thrown into landfills because it is often too expensive to recycle in tiny quantities. Historically, the ratio of gold to silver was roughly 15-1. This was determined by geology and human nature. But today, because of relentless systemic short selling and manipulation in the paper derivatives markets, the ratio is absurdly distorted, sometimes sitting at 70, 80, or even 90-1. It is a mathematical anomaly that cannot and will not last. When the dollar's credibility fractures, two massive, unstoppable forces will collide in the silver market. First, the industrial giants, the tech companies, the solar manufacturers, the military contractors will panic. They cannot afford to halt their production lines because they are out of silver. They will begin hoarding physical inventory at any price. They care about securing the metal, not the cost of it, because without it, their multi-billion-dollar enterprises grind to a dead halt. Second, the human element will ignite. When the average citizen wakes up to the reality of currency collapse, they will be gripped by primal fear. They will want to pull their wealth out of the dying banking system. Most people cannot afford a $2,000 or $3,000 ounce of gold, but almost anyone can afford an ounce of silver. When hundreds of millions of panicked citizens rush into a physical silver market that is fundamentally tiny and already suffering from massive structural supply deficits, the results will be biblical. The paper short positions will be obliterated. The physical supply will be drained in a matter of weeks. The price of silver will not just rise, it will detonate, slingshotting past gold in percentage gains and violently reverting to its historical mean. Holding physical silver today is like buying fire insurance on a burning house right before the flames reach the roof. We must speak about the psychological warfare of this transition. Governments will never hold a press conference and admit that they have bankrupted the nation. They will never look you in the eye and say, "We printed too much money, we funded endless wars we couldn't afford, and now your savings are worthless." Instead, they will blame everyone else. They will blame supply chains. They will blame greedy corporations. They will blame geopolitical adversaries, weather patterns, and anything else they can invent to distract you from the printing press. They will try to trap you in the system. As the dollar dies, they will push violently towards central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. They will market this as a convenient, safe, and secure evolution of money. Do not be deceived. A central bank digital currency is the ultimate tool of financial enslavement. It is programmable fiat. It gives the central authority the power to dictate exactly what you can buy, when you can buy it, and where you can spend it. They can attach expiration dates to your money to force you to spend it and stimulate the economy. They can block your transactions if your social credit score or your carbon footprint does not align with their political mandates. A CBDC is not the cure for the dying dollar. It is the final, desperate prison built by a failing empire to keep its citizens from fleeing. This is why moving your energy, your time, and your wealth outside of their digital fiat matrix is the most profound act of rebellion and self-preservation you can undertake. Buying physical gold and silver is not just an investment strategy, it is a declaration of sovereignty. It is a statement that you refuse to be collateral damage in the collapse of an arrogant, debt-based system. It is the recognition that true wealth is tangible, historical, and independent of the state. We are standing at the edge of a great chasm. On one side is the dying illusion of the fiat dollar system, a world built on debt, financialization, and broken promises. On the other side is a chaotic but ultimately grounded reality, a world returning to the unforgiving laws of physics and hard money. The transition across this chasm will be brutal for those who are asleep. It will wipe out the savings of the middle class, destroy pensions, and shatter the comfortable illusions of millions who trusted the authorities to protect them. But for you, the person watching this, the person who is awake and paying attention to the shifting tectonic plates of global finance, this is the greatest opportunity for generational wealth transfer in the history of humanity. Wealth is never truly destroyed, it merely changes hands. When the paper illusions burn away, the purchasing power of the world will ruthlessly flow toward the holders of real, physical, undeniable assets. Do not wait for the mainstream financial media to give you permission to protect your family. Do not wait for the politicians to sound the alarm. By the time the panic is obvious to the masses, the physical metal will be entirely gone. The premiums will be astronomical, and the window of escape will be welded shut. You have the intellect to see what is coming, and you still have the time to act. Fortify your position. Educate your loved ones. Transform your depreciating paper liabilities into the historical shields of gold and silver. Prepare for the repricing of oil and the shockwaves it will send through every facet of daily life. Stand firm in the storm, knowing that your foundation is built on the bedrock of real money, not the shifting sands of political promises. Thank you for being here with me today. If this message resonated with you, if it sparked something in your mind, please share this video with someone you care about. Hit the like button, subscribe to Aurex, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We are building a community of truth seekers here, and your voice matters. Stay vigilant, stay prepared, and remember, your financial future is in your hands, not theirs. Until next time, this is John Edgy.